Yeah, right. So I was asked to come and share my journey about the spirit of harmonious cooperation, JoyTeeTude and RESPECT. And I was initiated in June of 1999. I went through my NWTA. And it's been an interesting journey for the past 23 years. And I want to start with where I come from and where I've been a little bit, and then move on to that. So we're going to go to the next slide. And this is part of my family here, right? So in the top left corner is my father's family. He's one of 16 children. My grandmother was 13 years old when she was given to my 29-year-old grandfather when he bought a farm in upstate Pennsylvania. And they went and had 8 boys and 8 girls. My dad and his brother Paul are the only 2 still alive. The next picture is in 2016, our family reunion. There's about 75 people there. There was 98 folks, and that's only about a third of my family, with cousins and first aunts, uncles, and cousins and second cousins. And that's me on the right. It was Easter Sunday in 1960. I was 2 years old. That's a couple months after I had a near-death experience. And I remember this day, how hot it was, and that suit is wool, and my mother was yelling at me to smile so she could take my picture because it was Easter Sunday. And I survived. If you go down to the bottom left, I survived 8 years of Catholic school, and they're my siblings. I'm the oldest of 7. I have 1 sister. 2 of my brothers are no longer with us because of addiction. And it's part of the reason why I do what I do today. And then the next picture, that's my father, James Sr. I'm James Jr., my son, James III, and he's holding his son, James IV. And I thought that was pretty cool. And that's me and my sons and my 2 grandsons. And we'll move on to the next slide. And I'm ever grateful for my bride, Dawn, and her support of me and her help over the last several years. And you can see in the wedding pictures there, the wedding rings were in a Cracker Jack box. And it was the best gift, toy surprise in the Cracker Jack box that I ever got. We've been married for 15 years at the end of this March. And she's a big part of the reason why I'm able to do the things that I am able to do today. So thanks, Dawn, and let's move on. And this is part of the wall that I painted. That's one of the stickers that I have made up. And that's Ashley. She's one of the artists from the Kensington storefront. And part of the reason that I was able to do this. In the picture, in the middle, is Ashley and myself. Stephen Hovanek and Patrick Shetland and Patrick's son all came to visit. Stephen came from Indiana, and Patrick and his son came down from North Jersey to help paint the wall. And it's a pretty cool thing that the spirit of harmonious cooperation works in so many cool ways. And moving on, we'll so this is just some of my artwork. That's a weaving of the heart that I did in Kensington at the storefront. That's actually at McPherson Library that photo was taken. The picture on on the left is a fabric piece that I did that's part of a quilt for the Philadelphia Mural Arts Program. And it was a pretty cool thing to be a part of. And let's move on. There's the quilt, and then that's the storefront. Catherine and Lisa are in the front there. They're the folks that started the event. The fella in the back with the black Jeff is a guy named John Zerby, and he is the reason that I was able to put the RESPECT acronym on the wall on Ruth Street in Kensington. And so there's the Become Kindness and the RESPECT acronym again on the quilt. So, and let's move on. And these are some of my meeting notes that I take at the meetings that we have at MKP. Some of the men here might remember some of them. One of the things that I learned being neurodivergent and growing up with all the challenges that I did, like I never really took written notes. I always drew pictures. And so at the end of the meetings, I would hold up my little card and say, here's my notes for the meeting. And it makes me feel good, and it lifts my spirit and heart to express myself this way and to be received with JoyTeeTude most of the time. And I'm grateful for that. And so let's move on. And these are, that's Juan. He was in my I group at the time. We went to a Bury a Hatchet event, and that woman's a local radio celebrity here in Philadelphia. And she was happy to pose for the photograph. And the acronym came to me in 2014 when I did a meditation on the word respect, and I simply asked the universe, God, the spirit, whatever words are fit for you, to provide a message that might be available for me on what respect might mean. And it's been an interesting journey since then. And as we move on, again, these are just, this is at this Kensington storefront. That man on the right is Guy Morgan. He's no longer with us. He's an MKP brother. And he's a dear friend, and he helped me. So thank you. And can we move on? And so Andy, I selected this picture. There's so many men in this organization that I'm grateful for. And Andy Heller helped me to see my neurodivergence and to accept it and to understand it in a deeper way. And I'm grateful for that. And he's my #1 fan, so I want to be his #1 fan too. I think turnabout is fair play. So that's for you, Andy. I love you, bro, and I appreciate you. And let's move on. Right, so, right, be you, right? That's my message. That's one of my notes from the meeting, right? I be me, you be you, and everything will be pretty cool. And if we could stop the screen share now, I'd like to just share that JoyTeeTude came to me when I was having a lot of difficulty dealing with grief. The grief of losing my daughter in 1991. She died in delivery. And there were some other things going on in my life. And the messages, the quotes that there's a lesson and or a blessing in everything. Or, you know, if you have an experience, look for the gold lining and things like that were resonating with me. And I started checking in with joy and gratitude in all things. And I thought people would say, well, you got to check in, hurry up, because there's not a lot of time. And so instead of using all those words, I kind of crashed them together and I created this word JoyTeeTude. And it kind of stuck and it kind of caught on. And I'm aware that today they're speaking JoyTeeTude in 28 different countries around the world, and not just in MKP. And it's really kind of a neat thing, right? And then the Spirit of Harmonious Cooperation, that's all Pat McCoy's fault. And Pat's on the call today. And January 4th in 2014 was the first trustee board meeting in Philadelphia at Craig Lippman's house in his basement. And Craig is no longer with us either. I want to remember Craig Lippman, the sensing owl. And it was Pat's first meeting as the area steward and my first meeting as Philadelphia's shadow chair. And Pat questioned us and he asked us in the beginning in our check-in to check in with what it is we'd like to see happen in the coming year in Philadelphia, in the community, in MKP. And my response was that I would like to see us be more cooperative and less competitive. That's what I said, something along those lines. And then at the end of the meeting, Pat said, tell me one thing that you're going to do to obtain whatever it is that you said you wanted to see happening in the beginning of the year. And my response was, I haven't figured that out yet, but when I do, I'll let you know. And then for the following several months, I did everything and anything I could possibly think of. And the words eventually morphed into the Spirit of Harmonious Cooperation. And I started saying that, and it started catching on. And it just keeps on getting bigger and growing. And it's a really beautiful thing for me. And so thank you, Pat, for that, right? And and respect, right? Remember, everyone suffers painful experiences. Communicate tenderly. When I was in 4th grade, there was a young man, I'll call him Joe, and he was left back twice. He was supposed to be in the 6th grade. And he was a bully. And he was always nasty and angry. And I was one of the taller kids in the class. He started picking on me and bullying me. I wasn't afraid of Joey. But I just wanted him to leave me alone. I didn't want to bother him. I couldn't understand why he wanted to bother me. And I would ask him. And I remember he would take his index finger and he would press it really hard into his temple. And he would go, I have a pain right here, right behind this eye, and it doesn't ever go away. And nobody believes me, and I'm angry. I told my dad, I told the sister nuns, my mother, my dad went to his dad, and his dad said he's been to all the doctors, and the doctors, it's in his mind, he's crazy. I don't know what to do with him. But eventually, it got to the point where he wouldn't leave me alone, and I ended up hitting him twice. And I warned him several times. My father was a semi-pro boxer, and when I was 6 years old, I got boxing gloves for Christmas, and I knew that I could defend myself. He was bigger than me, but he was surprised that I hit him too. And the sad part for me is that because I was a good kid, the nuns started yelling at me for getting into the fight after I'd gone to her like 30 times to help not get this to happen. And then she said that you don't seem that you're too upset. And I said, well, sister, I've already discussed it with my dad. And when I get home, I'm not going to be in trouble with him. I just have to do whatever it is you tell me that I have to do. And so from her place, and at the time, I didn't understand it. She traumatized me is all I want to say. She said things that were very harmful and scared me because I was 10 years old. And I thought that whatever she said, my dad said to me, whatever she tells you have to do, you have to do. But when you get home, you'll be okay. And she was telling me I wasn't going home. And I don't want to go down that spiral, but the trauma of that moment caused me to set myself on a path of trying to figure out how can we all get along and do to create a more harmonious world, a world where we can all live together in peace, right? Because we only live one time. And it was like, and I did, and I carried it with me, you know, and I was traumatized in a lot of ways in my life. My parents traumatized me unconsciously and unknowingly because of the trauma that they experienced. And I just carried that forward with me all my life. And the thing that really hurt me was several years later, I found out that Paul, right, Joe, died of a brain aneurysm a couple years after we had our fight. And so, if we could just learn to listen to each other, the world would be a lot less painful. And I understood that then, and I carried it with me. If someone would have listened to Paul, the doctors thought, well, we did all the tests and we didn't find nothing, so we know it's in your mind, right? Wow, really? I'm sorry. You were wrong, you know? And I tried to help him, and nobody would listen to me either. And I'm grateful for him. I'm grateful for that experience. I'm grateful for all my experiences. And the truth is, I really believe a lot of the world's problems would be resolved if we could learn to speak tenderly with each other, be respectful. I've been in a lot of meetings in MKP where things weren't very respectful. It doesn't happen as often as it used to, and we're moving in the right direction. And the man at the helm at the moment is a captain who runs a tight ship. And I'm grateful for that, Daryl. And I'm overwhelmed with joy and gratitude, with JoyTeeTude at the moment. And I'm grateful to have this opportunity to share. Right. Another man I want to recognize is Art Patterson. I don't know how many of you folks may know Art. I invited him to be here tonight, and he wasn't able to attend. In 2017, in June, at Claymont Court in Delaware, we had the first Challenged Warrior weekend, the first and only, that it morphed into the, right, go ahead, what is it, the barrier-free weekend, thank you, right? And it's really a beautiful thing. And Art and I speak on the phone. We've talked on the phone every day since 2014. When a man introduced me to him, because I was speaking about my disabilities. I'm on disability, and Art has physical challenges as well. And we began speaking on the phone every day. Because his palsy, he loses his muscle control, and by speaking every day, he holds on to anger. So him and I, we're just phone buddies, and it's a beautiful thing. Nice. Cool. And yeah, so I'm in with that. And David, you're standing on your head, bro. Thank you.
Sorry, not intentional.
No, I get it. And so, and I'm open to, if anyone has anything that they'd like to share, I'd really like to hear it. Because I know I've touched some folks' hearts in a good way. Yeah. And thanks for the slideshow, Andy, as usual, brother.
I just, if you don't mind, I just want to add that, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, Jim. And so Jim led or co-led a number of pits with me, and he would check in with JoyTeeTude, and then the men in the pits started checking in when that fit for them, and people embraced that Katonaism, and I think at least in Philly, anytime a man checks in with JoyTeeTude, it's really an honoring of Jim. And so, and I'll add too that his service as shadow chair while I was a center director at the beginning before it became area steward for a community like Philadelphia, which some of you may know, was it saved my sanity. So thank you, Jim. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. Thank you. I love you, bro.
The last I group that, I love you too, Pat. And the last I group that we facilitated together, I believe they called themselves the JoyTeeTudes, right? Yeah. So that was pretty cool.
Hey, Jim.
Yes, sir.
If I may, you truly are the ambassador of MKP USA. And yeah, regardless of what anyone says, you are my ambassador from MKP. So thank you, brother.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can I say something? Only if you guys can
Please.
hear me.
Yeah, go ahead, Scotty.
So I haven't known Jim very long. It's been about 6-7 years, but we've met face to face several years in a row at different gatherings, which was kind of cool. And you know, I first heard the Spirit of Harmonious Cooperation and JoyTeeTude. I started by rolling my eyes. What the hell is he smoking? What the fuck is this shit? God. And would he just get over himself and shut the hell up and go? So I started trying to, I came from a different place, right? And I started trying to just tolerate this gentle giant. I learned what kind of heart Jim had. And now coming from Marine Corps drill instructor, that wasn't too far off base, but he was off base. And I had to bring myself into some place of how do I meet this guy? And now I've been studying a long time nonviolent communication, not that it did me any good until recently, right? I started integrating that with the rest of the things I learned in MKP. And Jim was part of the help that I had to get there. And I really came through in a way being able to appreciate Jim helped me appreciate diversity more than I ever could in my life before. And so the Spirit of Harmonious Cooperation started to mean something to me. And how do I really bring that to bear in all of the parts of my life? And it was probably Jim's steadfast persistence, and just he was there. And I saw him in shadow, and I saw him in light, and I watched him grow through all of the evolution of awareness of that. It was beautiful. So I want to thank you for being in my life, brother, and loving me the way that you do. I hope to return that someday, you know, at the level that it's coming. Thank you. I'm in. Next man, if there are.
Thank you, Scotty. Yeah.
Oh,
So
hey,
I want to.
wait a minute. I want to jump in, Jim,
Okay.
because yeah, you know, I sat with you in some pretty butt-numbing meetings, and I was always glad when you spoke up. But the thing I want to share with you and with the rest of the men here is that, Jim, you really set me free by drawing pictures. Every time I put pen to paper, I feel like I need to write some sort of really meaningful series of very serious words. And I looked at you over there drawing pictures, and I thought, holy shit, what's he doing? And you know, now I've met a couple other people who draw pictures, and now I'm one of them. When I sit down with my journal and I got nothing smart to write, I draw pictures. And so I just want to share that with you, that you know, you were the first guy I saw drawing those beautiful pictures, and it really has freed me to express myself in ways I wasn't able to before. So thank you for playing that role in my life and for everything that you do in MKP.
So I'll go next. I want to kind of ditto something that Scotty said, and that is that I'm constantly given the opportunity and blessing of seeing my own I don't want to say prejudice, just the fact that I come from a lot of privilege, and I'm constantly relearning what privilege is. And so as the leader of the stewards for a couple of years, we had a stewards meeting and Jim was at it, and I had to change something on the schedule. And Jim said, will you listen to my truth? And what he shared with me was that just by me moving the schedule and him having, you know, some physical issues that makes it challenging for him, this affected him. And it's something that I would never even have thought about. And the way I think that you did it from a heart space of saying, will you listen to this truth? That was a very powerful piece for me. We still did the change because it was something need to happen, but it was a huge piece for you to share that, of the impact on you of my changing things. So thank you for sharing that and allowing me to see my privilege in being blind to what my impact is on others.
Thank you, David.
Jim, it's Dave Horowitz. Speaking of being blind, so you've been in my life since 2014 when I did the weekend, and I had moved to New York, and I was trying to find an I group up there, and I was really having difficulty, and I was going through a lot of personal challenges. Combination of me being severely visually impaired, and also that my wife was dying of cancer at the time. You were the guy that made sure that I was contacted by an I group. And then on that first day, when I showed up at my very first I group, and there was like 4 men there, and you were there, and I had never met you before. You had to tell me who you were. But you drove all the way up from Philly to make sure I got my ass to that I group and that I had your support there. And that's one of the things I really want to acknowledge about you, is your level of commitment to the people that you love, which is pretty much the whole world, is so deep and so strong. And I know it's not easy for you to get up to New York from Philly. It's, it isn't for anybody to travel anywhere. And that really meant so much to me. It really altered my life. And then, we've had many talks, and I was very grateful to have the opportunity to be invited to participate in the Challenged Warriors thing at the beginning. And it really wasn't appropriate for me to participate, but I've always kept my eye on it the whole time. And I've been honored that, you've been in my life throughout everything in the last bunch of years, with my wife eventually dying, me moving out of the country even. And the depth of your heart and your compassion and the way you open people's hearts and minds, and with sayings like the RESPECT acronym, which I've been spreading around. You sent me those stickers, and I've been spreading them around to people that don't know anything about MKP at all. And you're just such a beautiful man. And I'm so grateful that you're in my life, and you're such my belief is that you're a contribution to everybody that knows you. And I really appreciate you. And thanks to the whole group for, having space for Jim and for who he is and what he brings to all of us. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you, David.
Yeah, Michael Drum here in Denver. I haven't been in the project as long as some people, but the first time I shared a circle with Jim on Zoom, I was very much noticing him, not only physically, but how his heart infused his wisdom, and how every time I've heard Jim share, the clarity of what he shares is just impeccable. And I don't want to put anybody on a pedestal. Nobody deserves. Jim doesn't want to be. He's got his shadows. I've never seen that, though. I have not been in any of these meetings where Jim might have shown that other side of himself. And I'm here tonight because Jim had called me a few weeks ago and shared what he wanted to try to do with the society. And how do we take the beauty of your heart, the wisdom, the clarity, and just the leadership, the motherfucking leadership that you display, Jim. And I would love to see how we as a community can support taking all of that and trying to share it. And I know I want to be there because I need it. I want it, and I'm here. So thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Michael.
So, Jim, like Scotty, I was an eye roller when I first knew you, and I was converted into a true believer. Of course, now I see you all the time, almost everywhere. Your commitment to this project and to the spirit of harmonious cooperation prevailing in the project. Well, it's been a part of what's helped me learn humility. And, you know, I that may have been the first time I actually used the words, the spirit of harmonious cooperation. It's where I have learned to live, and you're a part of it. And thank you for that.
Thank you. Thanks. We want to.
And Jim, I have a question. When Michael told me that you were talking about a society devoted to the spirit of harmonious cooperation, within the MKP umbrella, I don't actually know what that means to create a society for anything. Would you please elaborate?
So thank you. I was waiting for an opportunity to get back on that track, right? And so Scotty Krabler has agreed to be the administrator for the SOC Society, the Spirit of Harmonious Cooperation Society. And the society in MKP is an official society. There's already several. We have the LKS, the elders, right? The I groups council and all that. They're all societies within MKP. At least that's my understanding. And as a society in MKP, we get recognized and we have a voice and we have an opportunity to move forward in a good way. The intention behind the SOC Society is to develop and work on and encourage nonviolent communication, conflict resolution, solution seeking, crucial conversation, and free responsibility. And which is a creation of David Gruder's, about having freedom and the responsibility that comes with the freedom. And I put my email and my phone number in the chat. And if you're interested in participating and being part of that, if you reach out to me or Scotty, I'm sure he'd be willing to assist with that. We're in the development stages. Several men on the call already have agreed to be a part of it and are part of it. And does that answer your question, John?
It does indeed.
Is there something? Is there anything you'd like to add, Scotty?
Not right now. I mean, it's going to unfold, and administratively, we'll figure out what is the society doing and establish our mission and purpose and staff and get organized, and then see how it unfolds.
Right. So in the spirit of harmonious cooperation, John, I'm waiting until we get a group of folks together so there can be some harmonious cooperation. So it's not the Jim Katona show, right? And there's a whole lot of neat stuff that we can do, and it's happening, and it's a beautiful thing. So thank you all for being here tonight. And thank you for this opportunity. Right. And I'm being mindful of the time. So.
Well, Jim, I don't know what my level of involvement is going to be able to be, but please consider me part of the SOC Society.
Thank you, David. Touch my heart, brother. So, yeah.
Jim, this is Ken Mark Fingman. I have not known you at all. And could you take a few minutes? It'd be redundant for those people who do know their philosophy, but to share with me and the others, what is your philosophy?
What is my philosophy?
Yeah.
So love is my religion, right? God, spirit, creator. I don't know. It's, just, I don't really have a philosophy, right? I nurture and empower the divine child within while
whatever word, in other words, you are believing in the core of your body, certain approaches, attitudes, share those with me. I don't know what they are right now.
So, yeah, right. So, I've had a lot of trauma in my life. I've had a lot of experience with things that were harmful. I lost 2 brothers to addiction. My family comes from the building trades, predominantly the roofing business. I have cousins and uncles and nephews that have fallen off of roofs and passed away in a moment's notice, that kind of stuff. And life is full of tragedy. And I'm divorced from my first wife and remarried. And my first marriage, we weren't able to have a conversation, right? Because we got too angry and activated, and traumatized, and tense, and it was always conflicting. And so, and the story I shared about, Paul and the fist fight, and me defending myself and whatnot, and the trauma from that. We all traumatize each other, and if we can learn not to traumatize each other, we can have a happier life. I really think that it's so I'm going to use the word interesting instead of stupid, right? That when our children are in 4th or 5th or 7th grade and they come home and they have a conflict with another kid in school, we go, well, go figure it out and work out your differences, right? But then we get to be the leader of some country somewhere, and we get to make all these orders and go blow people up all over the world and kill them for profit and gain. That doesn't make any sense to me, right? Why can't we all get along? Why can't men sit down and settle their differences, right? Why do we have to go to war, right?
Jim, again, I'm not trying to be a hard ass about this. I'm just telling you, I don't get it. I hear your words. You have a wonderful background history. You have a number of testimonials, people who you have bonded with, and still, I don't have any idea what you're talking about.
Can I jump in?
Please do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not yelling at him, but I'm just
saying. You're asking if I heard you right. You're asking what the philosophy is behind the Spirit of Harmonious Cooperation. And so Jim's been practicing the Spirit of Harmonious Cooperation for several years and evolving the concepts. And one of those that came out is respect. I think his story outlined where the respect is useful on each side of that. The conflict resolution premise that we can resolve conflicts between us when we've done our own personal work is another premise that supports the spirit of harmonious cooperation living in and among us. That's based on a couple of different things. Is it nonviolent communication chiefly, and there's two other disciplines that we reference at the end of that course that are included and fundamentally principled toward what Jim is promoting, which is in the simplicity is the words that make up the title, right? The spirit of harmonious cooperation, and how do we foster that within each individual? How do we help support men to grow to that place in themselves? Does that help at all?
Not really. So let me try one more set of examples that may or may not help you, help me. Right now, our country is totally divided. We live in, those of us from Florida, is a totally split state. People I can play bridge with, I can talk about movies and sports, absolutely cannot say a word to me if Trump or Biden comes up. I mean, there's just no conversation. I've tried. There's no conversation. Even in MKP, I'm recipient of the Mid-Atlantic
understood.
And there's just been this volume of words going back and forth about people being discriminated against if they wear a mask or they don't wear a mask. What should be talked about? What is, believe me, I don't really see how we're getting from where you are to where Jim wants to be.
So Ken,
thank
you. Right. And yes, so everybody's on their own place on the path, bro. And we're all on our own journey. And not everybody's going to see things in the same way that we do. And it's an invitation to participate or not. Right. And I hear what you're talking about. And I can't do anything about that. All I can do is bring what I have to offer in a good way and hope that it catches on for those who are willing to receive it and are capable of receiving it and continue to do that, right? But personally, I don't have the bandwidth or the wherewithal to argue over which political leader is better or best or all that other stuff, because I don't have the intelligence, or I'm not in the rooms where I might have any idea to actually know what's going on, for one thing. And even some of the guys that are in them rooms have no idea what's going on, in my opinion. And, you know, so I'm here doing the best I can, living my mission and offering it in a good way to be received or not.
Hey, Jim,
I've noted, Pat, just before you go, Charlie's had his finger up there. It's about to fall off. So if you would, Charlie, take yourself off mute.
So I have a question of clarification, and maybe this will help Ken, maybe not. I think I heard a piece, maybe it was paraphrased, a piece of the MKP USA mission statement. And when there was discussion about what the society is about. And then I heard, I believe I heard several different communication methods that might actually help us better realize that mission in the world at large. And I'm just wondering if I'm imagining that, or if those things go together for you, Jim or Scotty.
Right. Creating a world where men stand on their individual and collective responsibility for the future of humanity, right? Absolutely. Thank you.
And remember the addendum to the spirit of harmonious cooperation. with respect.
Respect.
And I think, Ken, if I can, I don't speak for Jim, but I think I understand him, and respect in the way we treat each other, especially those who disagree with us, to carry that as part of that spirit. Maybe that helps.
Yeah.
Can I just add
Sure.
something? Sorry, Ken.
No, go ahead.
Jim, you had a saying on an oar that you had up on your wall. What was that? It was something about an oar. Yeah, either or something. Right? This was an either or. Someone gave that to you, or you created it. I'll just answer then. One of Jim's underlying belief systems that I think support the spirit of harmonious cooperation and respect is that our egos want to create an either or life. That is, you're either a winner, you're with me or you're against me, you're winning
Right.
or you're losing. And one of the tenets that Jim lives by is that that is a false duality, and that it's kind of the Zen notion that my well-being is tied up in your well-being, and that's the reality that we don't get. A lot of people don't get, or a lot of people in the cultures around the world don't get. And I would say that that's one of the underlying tenets that feed into the spirit of harmonious cooperation. And Ken, I've had the benefit of sitting in, trustee meetings, full council meetings, and other, meetings with Jim for a long time. So I get why it might be not as clear to you, because, he did something for 45 minutes and was trying to just give us snippets. So.
Okay.
Jim, thank you for bringing the prop. And a couple of times Andy's been waving and chatting. He's got something he'd like to share. And then David Gruder, I see your hand after Andy.
Thank you. Andy Heller. I'm in Tucson, Arizona, Mountain Standard Time. And I'm going to take myself out of my role of whatever it was you asked me to do in this meeting, Jim. And that includes and doesn't include what I'm about to do. Connection, for me, has to happen first. If there is no connection, there's no communication. I just say that all the time. You're going to make a Facebook comment and you don't know me? Call me offline. Otherwise, the whole thing goes not about me. Yes, I'm using the words and actually saying it again, Charlie. If there's no connection, there's no communication, and it is absolutely about me. And Jim is creating a platform to hold some of that. And I'm on board. And I have a
Thanks,
lot.
Andy.
Yeah, and I'll say what I always say. And I have so much less to say, and I'm in.
Thank you, Andy.
David?
Well, my offer is this. The way that I heard you, Jim, was in doing kind of a version of I Have a Dream, and leaving it to the society to collectively, in their emerging wisdom, to discover the I have a plan part. So my impression is that what you're wanting is people of like spirit, like heart, like intention to join together to birth something that is more articulated, more procedure oriented, more structured, more whatever than any one of us, including you, can do on our own. That's what I have.
So here's what
Thank
I,
you, David. So
and I
David,
want,
wait a minute, Andy, please.
go ahead. Got it.
Right. Thank you, David. Right. And so it's bigger than me. Right. Everything's bigger than me. It's bigger than me and you. It's bigger than me and you and us. Right. And I have a dare. Right. I had a dream and I have a dare. Right. To develop amicable resolution environments. There's another acronym for you. Right. And that's a note from a meeting. Right. Develop amicable resolution environments. Right. That's my dare. And that's what I'd like to see. That's my dream. And Ken, thank you. I hear you, bro. And I'd be more than happy to have a conversation with you offline regarding it. And
You're
yeah,
muted,
I'm
Ken.
cool with whatever happens.
And you're on mute.
Warren and I have both dealt with men in our community down here who, when you're dealing with MKP, when you're dealing with personal experiences, are the nicest, most cooperative, friendly guys. But you bring up vaccines, you bring up restrictions, you bring up, I think it was said well by Andy, hey, we're in a community together, as opposed to the so-called my rights are more important than anyone else. There is no respect. There is no communication, and it just stops. So I'll be very happy. I mean, people of like minds are not the people you want. You want people of unlike minds to come to a common. If not, then you get all the one group talking very nicely to each other and all of the other group talking very nicely to each other, but never crossing over.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. I hear you, bro. And we throw chairs at each other up here in Philly, in our I groups, in our council meetings. We have in the past. So, right. And it's unfortunate, like I said, we're all on a different place on our path, and we all make different choices about how we want to live our lives. Yeah, thank you.
Jim, for the sake of the recording, David Roland put in the chat window 37 years into MKP's experience, finally, before having an intro to conflict resolution. And you, Jim, and Scotty are major instruments in making that happen. Thank you for the work you have done and are doing around conflict resolution.
Thank you, John. And it would be remiss of me not to mention Christopher Odell and Scott Lewis at this moment, right? They're the men. Christopher Odell, particularly for me anyway, is, in my experience, the man who models conflict resolution for me in a big way. And they're the men who brought it to the organization. I just happened to be part of the team with Alan and Scotty and a few other men, and Michael Drum and Charlie. I don't know. I don't remember. I'm on so many different teams. So who's training or what training?
No, I'm in favor of conflict.
Can I now, Jim, part two?
So I'm not facilitating the meeting, Andy, but please go ahead.
So I want to start the society right now by setting an example. I've heard recently to include those who are like-minded and those who are not like-minded. Once you go that route, doesn't matter what direction, That's not what the society is about. It's not about division. It's not even about inclusion. That's the gift. It is not about inclusion, because inclusion includes division. So now what? I'm in.
Thanks. So thanks, David. I see your chat, David Gruder. Thank you. Ron has, go ahead, Ron.
I typed this out and put it in the chat there, but with speaking with Jim over the last few weeks about this, I think that the core philosophy is radical compassion. It's to that initial core feeling to whenever I hear something that I don't agree with is anger, and to take the space in between me hearing it and then me responding to it, and taking that time to do it and try to see the other person's point of view and realize that I am not the sole person. There's billions of people on this planet. There's billions of different views. And how do I do that? How do we bring that more into the world? We do it by example. Jim does it by example. And by that, we want to do more of that because of what he does. Ken, whenever you're speaking about it, I can hear there is tension in what it is that you were talking about. I know it's tension. I understand because I'm a science communicator. It's what I do. I know that those things are difficult. Jim and I have actually had conversations about stuff that we disagree with, but we do it and it's like, thank you for sharing your viewpoint on that thing. Here is how I disagree with that. And that's the way that we communicate with each other. And that makes it a whole lot better. That makes me, I have a tendency, because I have friends in the science community that they talk about these things. I'm like, I feel like I'm coming from a place of authority because of that. So whenever we're talking about something like vaccines, I may take it and say, this is the way that I look at it. This is the fact, there's no other option. And then I had a science communicator that was a friend of mine who he's a Black man, and I can't remember what community he's in, but he talked about the fact that the people, his grandparents, older men in his community, that vaccines were a way to test on people of color that, generations ago. So he has ways that, like, immediately they're not going to say that they think that it's okay, no matter whether he talks to them about science or not. And that makes them look at it in a different way. So I think that's kind of what I've got from Jim from it, is that kind of, if we can remove that patronizing and that condescension whenever we communicate with other people, and we try to have that patience and that understanding, that will then, if I do that with one person, they might do it with other people that are around them, and you kind of get that pay it forward in a compassionate and understanding sense. So that's what I've got from it. I don't know if Jim, you can tell me whether I'm on it or not on that.
That's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, for me, it's really about setting an intention. Do I want to allow the anger and the fear and the anxieties that I've known all too well through my upbringing and my adult life, do I want that to be the root of how I move forward into the future? And for me, it's about setting an intention that the answer to that is no. And so what do I do to support myself to move in that direction of the intention of not allowing fear, anxiety, etc., anger to be so quick to the surface?
And yet, again, I'm not arguing with you. And yet, when I read some of these MKP messages that are going back and forth about people being excluded from my groups because they don't wear their mask, or I don't remember what some of the other issues are. Here we are in MKP. I mean, I assume when I walk into a room of men of MKP who I don't know, I assume I'm in a safe space until I learn otherwise. Okay, that's naive, but that's me. And the fact is, I have only learned in the past couple years that there are people who I can trust on a half a dozen levels, but at some levels, they will desert me and turn against me.
Wow.
And make it very personal that you don't believe in my point of view, the hell with you. And I, you know, this will help, great. But I'm not feeling optimistic about it.
You know, Ken, Thomas Griggs has conducted some really good work on that, speaking about the difference between the interpersonal relationship you and I have, and when I have to sit and carry a burden of leadership and make an institutional or societal statement on behalf of some other larger group. And I think perhaps what part of what you may have been experiencing is the institutional messages that had to be delivered by men carrying a heavy burden of leadership. And I don't like them either. And I recognize them because I've carried a burden of leadership in several areas. I've been fortunate to, you know, have been put in positions of leadership, and I've always been very cognizant. And Thomas Griggs really helped me understand in a detailed way what that burden really amounts to. And I think, you know, everybody wants to be the boss. Nobody wants to carry that burden. It's a tough, tough thing. And I am particularly gratified that my brother Daryl is carrying that burden for MKP USA now, and I really respect what you have to do and the way you do it.
Thank you.
But,
yeah.
Good job. Jim, I've got one other thing to add in support of this society. And it's a podcast I heard where the person being interviewed was Trabian, Trabian Shorters. And he talks about asset framing, leading with the asset. And it struck me because I had taught summer school programs for Upward Bound that used to talk about at-risk students. And he said, instead of leading with the deficit, say, these are students who aspire to higher education and have challenges we can help them overcome. And that just by leading with the asset, for me, was a very helpful reframing. And that's what he calls it, asset framing. I'm in with that. Ken Wynn, I see your hand.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring this up because I noticed it right at the beginning during our check-ins. And it just seemed, you know, Ken, you were asking about, you know, philosophies of harmonious,
cooperation.
Yeah, harmonious cooperation, and, you know, some of the discord. And early when we were checking in, somebody shared their mission statement, and it talked about creating, you know, acceptance and not judging, you know. And for years, I have learned, and I still strive diligently, I put it in my prayers, to practice acceptance and not judge. I see so much turmoil and strife that are a direct result of people judging. I'm making a judgment, I'm right, you're wrong, you know, that kind of BS. And that just, it doesn't create harmony, that's for sure. But, and to me, you know, what that was shared, you know, striving for acceptance and striving not to judge, because I do hear a lot of judgment go on, and I'm not talking about the kind of judgment where I assess something to be effective or ineffective, that kind of thing, but just, you know, not judging in terms of right and wrong, you know, better than, you know, that kind of thing. You know, I just see it over and over again. It just creates so much strife between people, and in relationships and striving to accept people as they are for, for what they think, even if their opinion is different from mine, accept them and accept that they have that, and accept that, you know what, I might be wrong. They might have a better idea. To me, that needs to be, I would think that harmonious cooperation would out of necessity include that as a philosophy. Can you ask what the philosophies are? And to me, that's something, at least at a psychic level, could be turned into action. And I just felt compelled to share that. So, because ever since I heard it at the beginning of the meeting, it's like, oh, wow, that's huge. So I'm
Thank
out.
you, Ken. And I'm going to call us with 4 minutes left in the spirit of harmonious cooperation. What I'm going to invite everybody to do, take a breath and lean in closer to the screen. Take a moment to look from face to face at the people who have attended tonight. Breathe in this energy. We have one woman who graced us with her presence tonight. We have men who have not yet attended an NWTA. We have our national chairman in attendance. We have tonight great diversity on this call. Breathe that in the spirit of harmonious cooperation. Breathe this energy into your heart and let the next words you speak to any other human being come from a place of harmonious cooperation. We will not have a verbal checkout. Keep looking at the loving faces who are on this screen. And when you are ready, you can just press the red end button. I will be the last one out of the room. Thank you all. Jim, thank you for coming. Ron, thank you for running the slideshow. Bless you all, brothers and sister. Good night.